Today is the feast of Christ the King, and please make sure that you read Luke chapter 23, 35 to 43, because that's the gospel passage on which this reflection is based. I find it fascinating that on the feast of Christ the King, the church often uses gospel readings that reflect the most vulnerable moments of Christ's life. So you have the story from Luke, and the way Luke writes the story, it's unique. So I'm going to draw your attention to some of those things that make Luke's story a very special but unique story. Now, as people stand in front of the cross on which Jesus is crucified along with the two criminals, he separates two groups of people. So there are the ordinary folks who are merely watching a spectacle. They don't say anything. They're watching from a distance. But then you have the leaders who sneered at him, the soldiers who jeered at him. And so Luke separates the two. Now, even when it comes to the two criminals on Jesus' side, he separates one who joins with the leaders and soldiers in reviling Jesus, but the other expresses an act of faith. Now, all the people who reviled and sneered and jeered at Jesus, surprisingly and paradoxically and perhaps ironically, end up using the titles, the messianic titles of Jesus. So for example, they would say things like, if you are the Son of God, or if you are the Messiah, if you are indeed the King of the Jews, if you are the Christ, come down from the cross. So see what Luke is doing. While he is getting the people to revile him, showing the rejection of Jesus, they actually make a confession of faith. And you see this also with the two criminals. One of them reviles Jesus, saying that if you are the Christ, come down. On the other hand, the repentant criminal accepts Jesus and makes a confession of faith. He finds himself in paradise. Now, the third thing that Luke does here is that he shows that Jesus' opponents do not understand life. At least they do not understand life the way Jesus understands life. What do they want from Jesus? They want Jesus to come down from the earth and perpetuate his life here on earth. Jesus is living life on a completely different level. For him, his crucifixion and his death becomes the greatest assurance of life. He talks about life in the kingdom. Now, it is sad that this is how Jesus has to make a choice. It should not be the case, and Jesus would not be on the crucifix but for his opponents. But their understanding of life is very different. They do not understand the implications of the life that Jesus was offering. And then Luke introduces a fourth element to the way he describes the crucifixion. He introduces the readers, and this is critical. So you have those who are watching the spectacle, you have those who are sneering at Jesus and jeering at him, and the criminal who's reviling him, and you even have the repentant thief who's welcomed into the kingdom. But then there are the readers, Luke's immediate readers and his distant readers, and that is you and me. So we read the story, and now we are being brought into the story of Jesus' crucifixion, which is also his kingship being proclaimed, the kingship of his kingdom to which the repentant thief is being invited. So now it's up to you and me. In the confession of the repentant thief, Luke is inspiring us to make a similar confession of faith. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. So, in a few meditative moments, in a few contemplative moments, repeat that prayer often. And at the end of it all, may you hear Jesus say to you, you will be with me in paradise. Happy Feast of Christ the King.